When I hit my husband's lover, he shattered my leg. Then he threw me into the basement, saying I needed to think about my actions. I dialed my father, a mafia kingpin, and whispered, "On our third wedding anniversary, my husband broke my leg and threw me in the basement. Why? Because I caught him with his mistress, my best friend, and I dared to fight back. He thought I was just some pampered designer, but he had no idea who he was truly messing with. Because that's when I called my father, the head of the Romano crime family. It all started so innocently. I cut my New York Fashion Week trip short, desperate to surprise Ethan for our anniversary. The moment I opened the door to our Greenwich mansion, the sharp click of my stilettos echoed on the imported Italian marble. But something was wrong. A woman's lingerie was strewn across the living room, a sickening trail leading straight up to our master bedroom. My heart hammered against my ribs, cold sweat breaking out on my palms. But I was so naive, so foolishly clinging to hope. Maybe our housekeeper was just cleaning, right? That sliver of hope shattered the moment I heard it. Familiar moans from our bedroom. "Ethan, what if your wife comes back early?" Chloe's voice, sickeningly sweet, cut through me like a knife. "Don't worry," Ethan grunted, his breathing heavy with an excitement I'd never heard before. "She's in New York. She won't be back until tomorrow. And so what if she does? That broke designer. I'm the one who pays for everything anyway." I stood outside that door, my entire body trembling, a tremor that went deeper than just fear. Chloe Vance, my best friend from college, in my bed, with my husband. 3 years. 3 years I'd poured into building our family, our life, and in his eyes, I was just a freeloading designer. The last thread of my sanity snapped. I kicked the door open. The horrific sight burned into my eyes. 2 pale bodies tangled together, and Ethan scrambling off Chloe. Chloe screamed, pulling the sheets, but a provocative smirk played on her lips. "Sophia, listen to me," Ethan started. "This is all a misunderstanding." "Shut up." I swung my hand, hitting her face with all my strength. Chloe's head snapped to the side. Her perfectly sculpted nose was now crooked, blood trickling from the corner of her mouth. "Sophia, are you crazy?" Ethan leaped from the bed and punched me hard in the stomach. The pain buckled my knees, but I forced my head up, glaring at him through burning tears. "Ethan, how could you do this to me?" "How could I? You deserve this." He grabbed me by the hair, dragging me towards the grand staircase. "Who the hell do you think you are? Marrying into my family was the greatest honor of your life, you pathetic designer. How dare you hit Chloe? Her father is the CEO of Vance Industries." Even through the searing pain of my scalp being torn, a laugh, hollow and broken, escaped my lips. "So that's it? You cheated because her family has more money than mine? Have you forgotten who stood by you when you started your company from scratch? Shut your mouth." He shoved me in a fit of pure rage. I lost my balance and tumbled down the stairs. My right leg slammed into a decorative corner post. A horrifying crack echoed through the mansion, followed by an agony so intense my vision went black. "Stop the drama and get up," Ethan sneered, walking down the stairs to kick my injured leg. I screamed, my back instantly drenched in a cold sweat. "Ethan, I think her leg is broken," Chloe said, wrapped in a bedsheet, her face pale as she stared at my twisted limb. "What a nuisance," Ethan muttered. He grabbed my arms and dragged me toward the basement. "Let her cool off down there. Maybe she'll learn her place." I nearly passed out from the pain, but I bit my lip until I tasted blood, refusing to make another sound. As he threw me into the damp, dark basement, I heard him tell the housekeeper, "Don't give her anything to eat. Let her reflect on what she did for the next 24 hours. The heavy steel door slammed shut. Darkness consumed everything. I huddled in a corner, my right leg already swollen beyond recognition, the pain making me lose all sense of time. How long had it been? I felt for my phone in my pocket. Miraculously, it wasn't broken. At the very bottom of my contacts list was a number I hadn't touched in 20 years, saved under a single word, Dad. I pressed the call button. After 3 rings, a low, authoritative voice answered. "Yeah, Dad." My voice was a raw, broken whisper. "It's me, Sophia." Silence stretched for a few seconds. Then, I heard the sound of a chair crashing, followed by an urgent voice. "Sophia, where are you? What happened?" "My husband broke my leg, and he locked me in the basement." Each word was like swallowing glass. "Dad, help me. Send me your address. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Before the line went dead, I heard him yelling to get the car ready. With trembling hands, I sent my location. And then, suddenly, I started to laugh. I laughed until tears streamed down my face. Ethan, that fool. He thought I was just some ordinary designer. He had no idea who my father was. My mother had told me on her deathbed. My father was Vincenzo Romano, the don of the Syndicate, a crime family that held sway not just over New York, but across the country. My mother hadn't wanted me to be part of that life. She left him and raised me alone. I, too, had vowed to live without my family's influence, never even telling my father I had gotten married. And what did all that noble pride get me? Locked in a basement with a broken leg. In less than 10 minutes, I heard frantic footsteps and sounds of a struggle from upstairs. The basement door was kicked open in a single blow. A burly man in a black suit rushed into the blinding light. "Miss Sophia," he said. "I'm Marco. The Don sent me to get you." He knelt, examining my leg, and his face hardened. "These bastards." As Marco gently lifted me into his arms, I saw two of Ethan's security guards lying unconscious at the top of the stairs. Upstairs, Ethan and Chloe were on their knees, held down by several other men in black suits, their faces masks of terror. "Sophia, who are these people? What are you doing?" Ethan screamed, struggling against his captors. Leaning weakly against Marco's shoulder, I gave him a blood-stained smile. "Let me introduce you. This is my father's right-hand man. And as for who my father is, you'll find out soon enough, Ethan." As Marco carried me toward a waiting limousine, I heard Chloe's hysterical shriek. "That's impossible. Sophia said her father died years ago." Inside the car, a middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair was waiting anxiously. When he saw my mangled state, a chilling, murderous glint appeared in his eyes. "Sophia," he said, his voice raw, "Dad will break both of his legs. Leave no one from the Vance family standing." His voice was as cold as ice. The early summer sun was so bright I had to squint. The excruciating pain from my leg made me bite my lower lip until I tasted blood. "Just hold on a little longer, Miss Sophia." Marco's voice was calm and steady. The faint scent of gunpowder mixed with his cologne was strangely reassuring. Behind us, Ethan's shouts faded. "This is breaking and entering. I'm calling the police." "Sophia, what kind of monsters have you brought here?" I didn't even bother to look back. Marco's men would handle it. The limousine door opened, and for the first time in 20 years, I came face to face with my father, Vincenzo Romano. He looked much older than I remembered. His hair was grayer, but his hawk-like eyes were as sharp as ever. Those eyes were now fixed on my twisted leg. "Sophia." His voice trembled slightly. He reached for my leg, then stopped his hand mid-air. "Marco, get us to St. Jude's Medical Center. Tell Dr. Evans to prep an operating room." I was gently placed on the plush leather seat. My father propped my leg up with a cushion. He pressed a button, raising the soundproof partition between the front and back seats. "Who did this?" His question was short, his voice like Arctic ice. "My husband, Ethan," I said with a bitter laugh. "I caught him cheating with my friend Chloe Vance. This is what happened." My father's eyes were like the sea before a hurricane, calm on the surface, but concealing a destructive force. He took out his phone and dialed a number. "Get me everything on Ethan Hayes and Chloe Vance." "Yes, the daughter of Richard Vance." "Good. Don't touch them yet. Wait for my orders." Hanging up, he turned to me. "Why didn't you call me sooner? After your mother left, I never stopped looking for you." "Mom didn't want me involved with the syndicate," I said weakly. "I went to design school, got a job at a famous firm. I thought I could live a normal life." A muscle twitched in my father's jaw. "And you ended up with a beast who breaks your legs." I couldn't say anything. The city skyline blurred past the window, just like the last 3 foolish years of my marriage. At the VIP entrance of St. Jude's, a team of doctors was already waiting. Dr. Evans, one of the top orthopedic surgeons in the country, personally pushed my gurney into the elevator. My father held my hand the entire way to the operating room. His hand was rough but warm. The surgery was a success. When I woke up, I was in a hospital suite that looked like a 5-star hotel room. My right leg was in a cast, elevated by a sling. Outside the window, the glittering city lights stretched to the horizon. My father was sitting on the sofa by my bed, reading through a file. Under the lamplight, his profile looked exceptionally cold and hard. "Dad," I called out softly. He immediately put the file down and came to my side. "How are you feeling?" Dr. Evans said the surgery went perfectly, but you'll be off your feet for at least 2 months. "Thank you." I hesitated for a moment, then asked, "Ethan and the others?" "Marco took care of it," he said, a ruthless glint in his eyes. "Your husband thought we were just some street thugs screaming about pressing charges." I let out a laugh, then winced as the pain flared up. That fool, Ethan. He had no idea who he had crossed. The syndicate wasn't just a gang. It was a shadow power that moved pieces in politics and business across the country. Even high-ranking government officials trod carefully around my father. "Sophia, I want to hear what you think," my father said softly, sitting beside me. The syndicate's way, Ethan Hayes would be at the bottom of the Hudson River by now. I closed my eyes. I remember the day I first met Ethan 3 years ago. He was a young entrepreneur, just starting out. He waited outside my office for a month, begging me to design the logo for his new company. He said my designs had soul. He said he'd never met a woman as special as me. "I'm going to make him feel a pain worse than death," I said, my voice cold as ice when I opened my eyes. The Hayes family may look like legitimate real estate developers, but they built their fortune on loan sharking and illegal demolitions. I'm going to make Ethan watch it all come crashing down right before his eyes, until there is nothing left. Just like he did to me. A satisfied smile touched my father's lips. He pulled a thick file from his suit jacket. "Perfect timing. My people just found out the Hayes family is betting everything on a bid for the new East River development project. Their bid is full of inflated numbers." He flipped through the pages, pointing to one. "And what's more interesting is that your husband embezzled $3 million of company funds to launder at a casino in Atlantic City. He still hasn't filled that hole." I took the file. My heart started to race. This evidence alone was enough to send Ethan to prison. Enough to make Hayes' construction stock plummet. Dad, I need time, I said, taking a deep breath. I'm going to pretend to forgive him. I'll go back to that house and gather more evidence. It's too dangerous, my father said, frowning. Please, I insisted, taking his hand. I need to destroy him with my own hands. After a long silence, my father finally nodded. All right, but Marco will be by your side 24/7. He pressed the call button, and Marco, who had been waiting outside, entered the room. From this day on, my life belongs to Miss Sophia, Marco said, kneeling on one knee and presenting me with a specially-made satellite phone. Miss Sophia, my direct line and the Don's emergency numbers are saved in here. If you're in any danger, press this red button. We'll be there in under 3 minutes. I took the phone. Its heavy weight felt like the key to a new life. A few days later, a terrified-looking Ethan appeared at my hospital room door. His suit was wrinkled, and dark circles hung under his eyes. He clearly hadn't slept in days. Sophia. His voice trembled. He was holding a pathetic bouquet of carnations. I had no idea your father was Don Vincenzo Romano. I composed my face into a look of weary forgiveness. It's my fault, too, Ethan. I shouldn't have hit Chloe. Ethan rushed to my bedside as if I'd thrown him a lifeline. Sophia, does this mean you forgive me? I must have been out of my mind. It was all Chloe's fault. She seduced me. I swear it will never happen again. His clumsy acting made me want to throw up the soup I'd had for breakfast. But the play had to go on. You've already gotten an earful from my father, haven't you? Let's just put this behind us, I said softly. When I get out of here, we can start over. Okay. Ethan nodded frantically, unable to hide his relief. He had no idea that as he held my hand with his phony sincerity, a hidden camera in the room was recording his every expression. On the day of my discharge, my father sent a motorcade of 10 black Mercedes to escort me back to the Hayes mansion. The spectacle was so over the top it made the local news. Ethan stood at the front door, his face pale as he watched Marco himself push my wheelchair inside. If even a single scratch appears on Miss Sophia, Marco whispered in Ethan's ear, just loud enough for me to hear. The Don said he wants to watch you get eaten alive by wild dogs. Ethan's legs trembled and he looked like he was about to wet himself. Returning to the place I once called home felt disgusting. The bed in our bedroom was especially repulsive. Ethan had changed the sheets, but I could vividly picture him and Chloe writhing on it. Sophia, you should rest. I have an urgent matter at the office, Ethan said, pouring me a glass of water before trying to make a quick exit. Okay, come home early, I said with a smile, watching him leave. The moment he was gone, I poured the water into a potted plant. Marco stood guard outside my door while I opened my laptop and got to work. As Ethan's wife, I knew the passwords to all his devices. I logged into his cloud account and quickly found what I was looking for. Hotel booking record for the last 6 months, bank transfer histories, and even a few videos that were hard to watch. You animal, I muttered with a cold smile, saving the evidence. Just then, a new message popped up on his screen. It was from Chloe. Ethan, thank God she believed you. I'll wait for you at our usual spot. I miss you like crazy, baby. I stayed at the screen, then laughed out loud. Ethan, you couldn't even wait 3 days. Perfect. This will make my revenge all the more satisfying. I picked up the satellite phone and called my father. Dad, I think it's time to start quietly buying up shares of Hayes Construction. Yes, so no one notices. After hanging up, I looked out the window at the bright sunlight. I once believed love was everything. I had willingly hidden my own light to become Ethan's shadow. But that naive Sophia was shattered, just like her broken leg. From now on, I would make it perfectly clear to everyone what happens when you cross the daughter of the Romano family. Miss Sophia, are you really going to do this? Marco asked, standing at the door of my walk-in closet with a frown. I adjusted an earring in front of the full-length mirror. The woman in the reflection wore a deep crimson dress, her red lips as vivid as blood. I had traded the cast on my right leg for an intricate metal brace, which peeked out from beneath the slit of my dress. Of course, I said, turning to face him. The Hayes family is throwing an anniversary party. As the lady of the house, I can't possibly miss it. Marco started to say something, then closed his mouth. In the 2 weeks since I had returned home, I had seemingly reconciled with Ethan. But behind the scenes, using my father's connections, I had already acquired 3% of Hayes' construction stock and was in contact with 2 minority shareholders willing to sell. My phone vibrated. It was a message from my father. Julian Croft has arrived in New York. He will attend the party tonight as a guest. He is what you need. The corner of my mouth lifted into a slight smile. Julian Croft, the son of my father's old friend, a financial prodigy from Wall Street. He was a man in charge of the syndicate's legitimate investments. With his help, my plan would take flight. Miss Sophia, the car is ready. Marco handed me a silver USB drive. The video you requested has been processed. I slipped the USB into my clutch. The cool touch of the metal glinted under the light, just like the cold resolve in my heart. The party, celebrating both the founding of Hayes' construction and our anniversary, was held at the Plaza Hotel in Manhattan. The moment I entered the ballroom on Ethan's arm, hundreds of eyes turned to us. They were filled with curiosity, surprise, and mostly the eager anticipation of a public spectacle. The scandal of a tycoon's wife exposing her husband's affair with her best friend had spread like wildfire through the city's elite. "Sophia, you look stunning tonight," Ethan whispered in my ear. His hot breath on my neck made my stomach churn. I suppressed my disgust and gave him a radiant smile. "It's an important night. I can't have you losing face, can I?" Ethan breathed a sigh of relief. The gentle, understanding demeanor I had shown for the past 2 weeks, even convincing my father to forgive him, had clearly convinced him that I had forgotten everything. The foolish man. My father-in-law and mother-in-law approached, their faces plastered with awkward smiles. After learning my true identity, the social climbing couple's attitude had done a complete 180. "My dear, how is your leg?" My father-in-law, William Hayes, said, wringing his hands. "Ethan can be so thoughtless. We're so grateful for your understanding." I responded with a smile and scanned the room. I soon spotted Chloe Vance by the champagne tower. She was wearing a white lace dress that made her look like a cheap wedding cake. She shot me a look full of resentment. "I need to go say hello to an old friend," I said, releasing Ethan's arm and making my way towards Chloe, leaning on a cane. Chloe's face went pale, and she instinctively took a step back. "Chloe, it's been a while." My voice was just loud enough for a few people nearby to hear. "White suits you. You look just like the ghost you played in our college play." A few stifled laughs broke out around us. Chloe's face turned from white to a furious red. "Sophia, don't be so smug. Ethan is only with you because he's afraid of your father." I silenced her by placing my index finger on her lips. "Let's not spoil the mood on such an important night." I leaned in and whispered in her ear, for her alone to hear. "There's going to be a fun little show later. Make sure you keep your composure." Before she could react, I turned away gracefully and came face to face with Julian Croft, who had just entered the ballroom. He was dressed in a perfectly tailored navy suit, his eyes sharp as a hawk's behind gold-rimmed glasses. "Miss Romano, I've heard a great deal about you," he said, lightly kissing the back of my hand. "The Don speaks very highly of his daughter." "Mr. Croft," I smiled. "I was hoping we could speak for a moment after the party." "It would be my honor." We parted with an unspoken agreement. As the party got into full swing, William Hayes took the stage to boast about the glorious achievements of Hayes' construction, conveniently omitting any mention of a $3 million hole in their finances. I sat at the head table playing the part of the perfect wife, maintaining a graceful smile and occasionally straightening my husband's tie. "Finally, I want to thank my daughter-in-law, Sophia, for her understanding and grace," William suddenly announced. "Everyone makes mistakes when they are young. What's important is that the family remains strong. Now, let's all raise a glass to this lovely couple." Everyone raised their glasses. I lowered my head to hide the contempt in my eyes, then looked up with a warm smile. Ethan, seemingly moved, took my hand. "Sophia, I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you." "You won't need a lifetime," I said softly. "You can start right now." Leaving him with a puzzled look, I took my cane and slowly walked up to the stage, taking the microphone from the MC. "Thank you all for attending our anniversary party despite your busy schedules." My voice was clear and steady. As the wife in this family, I prepared a special gift. I gestured towards the lighting booth. The ballroom lights dimmed, and a massive screen slowly descended from the ceiling. Ethan's face tensed, a sense of dread dawning on him. "No, Sophia, please don't." He tried to rush the stage to stop me, but Marco appeared behind him, his hand clamping down on Ethan's shoulder like a vice, holding him in place. "Enjoy the show, darling," I said, pressing a button on the remote. The high-definition screen lit up with a crystal-clear video of Ethan and Chloe writhing on my marital bed, complete with graphic audio. A date stamp in the bottom right corner showed it was filmed while I was in the hospital with my broken leg. They couldn't even wait 3 days. The ballroom erupted into chaos. Chloe screamed and ran for the exit, but was blocked by security. My father-in-law's face turned ashen, and my mother-in-law fainted on the spot. "But that's just the beginning," I announced, switching the screen. Bank statements and casino surveillance footage appeared. My husband embezzled $3 million of company money to gamble in Atlantic City, which caused the East River Development Project to stall, leaving hundreds of displaced residents on the streets. Finally, I played an audio recording of Ethan on the phone with the head of a demolition crew. "I don't care if 1 or 2 of them die. The important thing is that the site is cleared by tomorrow." The ballroom fell dead silent. I walked step by step towards the ashen-faced Ethan. "For 3 years of our marriage, I secured 7 major projects for you. My designs won awards and raised Hayes Construction stock price by 30%. My voice was quiet but sharp as a razor. And what you gave me in return was betrayal, violence, and humiliation." Ethan's legs gave out, and he collapsed to his knees. "Sophia, I'm so sorry. I was wrong. But I forgive you." I suddenly raised my voice, turning to the stunned guests. "Because I am just that loving of a wife." The room buzzed with confusion once more. My father-in-law, as if granted a pardon, scrambled onto the stage and snatched the microphone. "It's a misunderstanding. It's all a misunderstanding. As you can see, my daughter-in-law has forgiven my son. Now, everyone, please enjoy the party." I descended from the stage gracefully, walking through a sea of complicated stairs toward the corner where Julian Croft was waiting. He handed me a glass of champagne, his eyes behind his glasses shining with admiration. A magnificent debut. It's just the beginning, I said, taking a sip. Did you bring the files? Julian produced a folder from his briefcase. The complete shareholding structure of Hayes Construction and their real financial statements from the last 3 years. They are much more interesting than what's been made public. I opened the folder. My pupils contracted. The company's actual debt was more than 3 times the reported amount, and a massive sum of money had vanished through a series of shell corporations. This is more than enough for a short sale. More than enough, Julian smiled. I've already contacted 3 firms that specialize in short selling. They're just waiting for your signal. The party continued in a bizarre atmosphere. Ethan followed me around like a kicked dog, endlessly begging for my forgiveness. I maintained a dignified smile the entire time, looking for all the world like a gracious wife embracing her wayward husband. My dear William Hayes pulled me aside, wiping the sweat from his brow. The board of directors. Don't worry, father, I said, affectionately taking his arm. I've already told my father to halt his purchase of Hayes Construction stock. We're family after all. He let out a long sigh of relief. He had no idea that I already owned 5% of the company through an offshore corporation. With the 8% I was set to acquire from the 2 minority shareholders, I was already the 4th largest shareholder in Hayes Construction. After the party, Julian drove me back to the Greenwich mansion. Marco sat in the passenger seat, ever vigilant. Hayes Construction stock will plummet next week. Julian analyzed. The combination of the scandal you exposed tonight and the pressure from our short sellers will send it into a nosedive for at least 3 consecutive trading days. Good, I said, watching the city lights flash by. When it hits rock bottom, we'll buy up everything. When the car stopped in front of the mansion, Julian suddenly asked, "Did you really forgive him?" I smiled wryly and pointed to my right leg, still in its brace. "Mr. Croft, do you believe in loving your enemy?" "Not really," he chuckled. "No, neither do I." Inside the mansion, Ethan was on his knees in the living room, crying like a child. Looking down at him, I found the situation endlessly amusing. This was a man I once loved. This cowardly, despicable, spineless piece of trash. Sophia, I was wrong. I was so wrong. He sobbed, grabbing my leg and smearing tears and snot on my expensive dress. I stroked his hair gently as if patting a dog. "Ethan, let's start over." He looked up, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "But," I continued, "I need to see that you're sincere. I hear Chloe's father is also bidding on that new North Shore development project." Ethan immediately understood. "I'll cut all ties with the Vance family tomorrow. I promise." "Good boy," I said, patting his cheek a couple of times. "Now go to bed. You have work tomorrow." After Ethan scurried upstairs, thanking me 1,000 times, I went into his study and locked the door. I called my father. "Dad, it's time to start the next phase." "Yes, I need the evidence on the Vance family smuggling operation." After the call, I turned on my computer and re-watched the video from the party, pausing on the frame where Ethan was kneeling and begging for forgiveness. I casually hit the delete key. This is just the beginning. My dear husband, you're about to learn that losing everything is a far greater pain than any physical wound. 3 days after the party fiasco, I was sitting in the dining room, elegantly eating blueberry pancakes. My leg brace had been replaced with a much lighter model. Ethan came down the stairs, his tie askew and dark circles under his eyes. "Coffee?" I offered, pushing a steaming latte towards him. He eyed the cup with suspicion and refused. "No thanks. I have an urgent meeting." I shrugged and took a sip myself. Ethan's recent behavior was quite amusing. In public, he was subservient, but when we were alone, he wouldn't even touch food that I had handled. Marco's warning had clearly been effective. "Oh, by the way," I called out as he was about to leave. "There's a charity auction at the club in Soho tonight. I donated that Patek Philippe watch of yours. You don't mind, right?" Ethan's face stiffened. "But that watch was my grandfather's." "I know. It's a limited edition," I said with a sweet smile, "which means it will sell for a much higher price. It's already been announced to the press. Young heir of Hayes Construction donates family heirloom to help the less fortunate. It's great PR." He clenched and unclenching his fists, then forced a smile that was more like a grimace. "Of course, I don't mind." As I watched him flee, I checked the security camera feed on my phone. The moment Ethan got into his car, he was frantically making a call. 10 to 1, he was complaining to Chloe. Though they had supposedly cut ties after the party, they were clearly still in contact. My phone vibrated. It was a message from Julian. "Short sellers are ready. Hayes Construction stock hit limit down at market open this morning." A satisfied smile spread across my face. The party video had been leaked online, and #Hayes scandal was trending nationwide. The board had requested a trading halt, but it was too late to stop the freefall. Marco appeared silently at the dining room door. "Miss Sophia, the car is ready. You have a checkup at the hospital first. Then we're going to that private investigator my father recommended." In the hospital corridor, I ran into an unexpected person. Chloe. She was wearing sunglasses and a mask, cautiously exiting the obstetrics and gynecology clinic. I quickly ducked around a corner and discreetly took a photo of her receipt as she paid. A positive pregnancy test. Zooming in on the photo, I couldn't help but laugh. It seemed Ethan's groveling at the party had borne fruit after all. A little devil was truly growing inside Chloe's belly. After my checkup, I had Marco drive to a rundown office building on the outskirts of the city. The elevator took us to the top floor. The doors opened to an office crammed with electronic equipment. A skinny man in a plaid shirt was staring intently at 6 monitors simultaneously. "Miss Sophia, they call me Kay," he said without turning around. "I've got everything the Don asked me to find right here." Kay played several surveillance videos. They showed Ethan and Chloe enjoying a rendezvous at a motel on the edge of town just yesterday afternoon. And here's something more interesting. Kay switched screens. Now it showed Chloe's father, Richard Vance, and Ethan's father, William Hayes, meeting secretly at an exclusive cigar lounge. They meet here regularly, on the 15th of every month, have been for at least 5 years. My eyes narrowed. "Can you record their conversation?" "That's difficult," Kay said, scratching his head. "That place has military-grade security." "Use this." I took a fountain pen from my purse. A gift from my father. "Next time they meet, bribe a waiter to plant this on Richard Vance." Kay took the pen, his eyes lighting up. A state-of-the-art listening device. I didn't know the Don had access to these. Leaving the Pie's office, I called my father. "Dad, Chloe's pregnant." "No, don't touch her yet. That baby might be useful." "Oh, and Richard Vance and William Hayes have been meeting regularly. Something's not right." There was a moment of silence on the other end. "Sophia, the relationship between the Vances and the Hayes might be more complicated than you think. It goes back 20 years. 20 years ago. What happened 20 years ago?" I pressed, but my father, for the first time, sounded hesitant. "I'll find out for sure and let you know. Tonight at the auction. Be careful around that Chloe girl." I hung up, lost in thought. My father was definitely hiding something, and my gut told me it had to do with my mother. That evening, I changed into a dress from Chanel's latest collection and asked my makeup artist for a fragile beauty look, elegant but pitiful. Marco presented me with a jewelry box from the Don. Inside lay a diamond necklace with a rare black pearl at its center. I remembered seeing this necklace in a photograph of my mother. When we arrived at the club, Marco asked, "Miss Sophia, shall I accompany you inside?" "No, you wait in the car." I toyed with the black pearl at my throat. I can handle tonight's performance on my own. The charity auction at the exclusive social club was always a major event for the city's elite. The moment I entered, the noisy hall fell silent. Soon, whispers erupted from all corners. "That's the Hayes construction daughter-in-law." I heard her father runs the entire East Coast underworld. That Ethan Hayes must be blind, throwing her over for someone like Chloe Vance. I pretended not to hear and walked to my reserved seat at the front. As soon as I sat down, a heavy perfume assaulted my nostrils. "Sophia, long time no see." Chloe had appeared beside me. She was wearing a white dress, intentionally emphasizing her slightly rounded belly. "I heard you're still having trouble with your leg." "Such a shame." I smiled and looked at her stomach. "You must be about 3 months along. You should be careful in your first trimester." Chloe's face tightened slightly. She clearly hadn't expected me to know about her pregnancy. "Ethan is so excited about this baby," she said, lowering her voice, a malicious glint in her eyes. "Is going to divorce you as soon as the baby is born." "Is that so?" I took a tablet out of my clutch and played a video. "Then what do you make of this conversation from yesterday afternoon?" In the video, Ethan was frantically running his hands through his hair. "Why now, of all times? My father is forbidding me from seeing you. The company's stock is crashing. And if that crazy wife of mine finds out I'm still talking to you, I'm finished." Chloe's face turned ashen. "You? How did you? You didn't even bother to close the curtains in room 308 of that motel." I sighed. "If you're going to cheat, at least cover the basics, my friend." The other guests couldn't hear our conversation, but Chloe's near-fainting state was drawing plenty of attention. I stood up and deliberately raised my voice. "Chloe, you look so pale. Should I call a doctor? Especially with the baby on the way." "What? Chloe Vance is pregnant? It must be Ethan Hayes' baby. How shameless can you be?" The murmurs grew into a wave of gossip. Flustered, Chloe tripped on the hem of her dress and fell spectacularly in front of everyone. As she scrambled to her feet, a dark red stain was spreading across her white dress. "Ah, my baby," she shrieked hysterically. I watched the scene with cold eyes, then calmly dialed 911. Tonight's performance was turning out to be far more interesting than I had planned. Not only had Chloe humiliated herself in public, but she had also announced her own pregnancy. The gossip columnist would have a field day tomorrow. Before the ambulance arrived, I even made a point of calling Ethan, for Chloe's sake. His first reaction upon hearing his mistress had miscarried was surprisingly, "Damn it, now my father's going to kill me." Hearing that, Chloe fainted. I never made it to the auction. When I returned to the mansion, Ethan was in his study, smashing things like a madman. The moment he saw me, he lunged, his eyes bloodshot. "What did you do to her?" "Me." I blinked innocently. Everyone saw it. She tripped and fell all by herself. "You." On the other hand, those words you said in the motel were very moving. Ethan froze as if struck by lightning. You were spying on me." "That's not important," I said, sitting down gracefully. "What's important is that I've decided to help you two get together. Let's get a divorce." I tossed the word out lightly. I'm sick and tired of this sham of a marriage. A flicker of relief crossed Ethan's eyes, quickly replaced by suspicion. "What are your terms?" "For old time's sake, I'll only take what I'm owed. I spread out the papers I had prepared. This house is mine, and I want 5% of your company shares. That's insane. Ethan, shut up. Do you have any idea this house is worth $10 million? And forget about the shares. I sighed and pulled a stack of photos from a drawer. Then I guess these photos will be sent to every news outlet tomorrow morning. The photo showed Ethan not only with Chloe, but with at least 3 other women. More damningly, there were pictures of him gambling in Atlantic City, hobnobbing with local mobsters. You. Ethan's face turned a deathly gray. I'll give you 3 days. Think it over, I said, collecting the photos. Oh, and by the way, Chloe may have lost the baby, but I'm sure your father is relieved. He hates the Vance family, doesn't he? Ethan's head snapped up. How do you know my father hates the Vances? A lucky guess, I smiled. Why else would he forbid you from seeing Chloe? Ethan stared at me with suspicion, then stormed out of the room. I immediately called Kay, the investigator. I need you to dig into the relationship between William Hayes and Richard Vance. Focus on 20 years ago. After hanging up, I checked my computer for the day's harvest. According to Chloe's medical records, not only had she miscarried, but the trauma had damaged her uterus, making future pregnancies unlikely. An unexpected bonus. My phone vibrated. It was a recording from my father. I put in my earbuds. Richard Vance's furious voice filled my ears. William, have you forgotten what happened 20 years ago? If I hadn't taken care of that body for you. The recording cut off abruptly, but it was enough to send a chill down my spine. William was my father-in-law. The word body made my blood run cold. A text from my father arrived a moment later. Sophia, come see me tomorrow. There are things I need to tell you. I stayed at the phone screen, my heart pounding. What happened 20 years ago? Whose body was it? And could it be connected to my mother's sudden death? Outside, a flash of lightning split the night sky. My reflection in the window was pale and cold, my eyes burning with the fire of vengeance. Ethan, did you think a divorce would be the end of this? No, it's just the signal for the next act of my revenge to begin. My father's estate was nestled deep within a bamboo forest on the outskirts of New York. A high wall surrounded the property, with 2 men in black suits standing guard at the gate. During the entire drive with Marco, I couldn't stop thinking about that recording. Took care of that body. Those words were like thorns in my mind. We're here, Miss Sophia, Marco said softly. I took a deep breath and opened the car door. My father was in the garden practicing Tai Chi. Each movement was deliberate and powerful, belying his age. Sophia. He stopped and gestured for me to follow him inside. Is your leg better? I can walk without the cane now. I followed him into his study. The rich scent of cigars and old leather filled the air. The room was exactly as I remembered it, right down to the celadon vase my mother had cherished, still in its place. My father retrieved a yellowed envelope from his safe, his expression heavy. 25 years ago, when your mother left me, she was already pregnant with you. I know, I nodded. But you don't know why she left. He pushed a faded photograph across the desk towards me. Look at this man. In the photo, a younger William Hayes stood with a stranger in front of a construction site. They were holding champagne glasses, and a banner in the background read, "Groundbreaking ceremony for Hayes' construction." The stranger had his arm around William's shoulder, smiling broadly. Who is this? I frowned. Christopher Vance, Richard Vance's younger brother. My father's voice was ice. And the man who murdered your mother. I dug my nails into my palms. What happened back then? William Hayes and the Vance family were running a redevelopment project together, using illegal demolition tactics. Someone died in the process. Christopher Vance beat a protester to death. My father produced another document. Your mother happened to capture proof of it on film and was going to go to the police. The document contained several blurry photos. Christopher Vance was holding a steel pipe, and a blooded protester lay on the ground. The date on the photo was 1 week before my mother's death. Christopher found out and went after her. My father's voice trembled slightly. By the time I got there, it was too late. I stayed at the photo, my vision blurring. The truth I had been told, that my mother died in an accidental fall when I was 5, was a horrific lie. The police had closed the case so quickly because the Hayes and Vance families had pulled strings. What about Christopher Vance? My voice was a raw whisper. Dead, my father sneered. Died in a car accident 3 days after the funeral. I looked up sharply, and the look in my father's eyes told me it was no accident. William Hayes and Richard Vance covered everything up, my father said, gathering the documents. I've been collecting evidence for years, but their roots in politics and business run too deep. Until you married Ethan Hayes. I finally understood my father's. Silence. You were waiting for me to find out the truth. I didn't want you to be blinded by revenge, he sighed. But now you have your own reasons to seek it. I stood up and walked to the window. The bamboo forest swayed in the wind, sounding like the whispers of 1,000 ghosts. My gentle mother, who had taught me to paint, had met such a brutal end. Dad, they have to pay the price in blood, I said, turning back to him. My voice strangely calm. Not just Ethan, but the entire Hayes and Vance families. A look of satisfaction crossed my father's eyes. Do you have a plan? Feist, we need to make them turn on each other. I opened my phone to a report Julian had just sent. The defective steel rebar used in the Hayes Construction East River project was supplied by a shell company controlled by Richard Vance. My father's eyes gleamed. You're trying to drive a wedge between them. The media is already prepped, I said, glancing at my watch. In an hour, the news about the East River project potential collapse will be front-page financial news. My father poured me a glass of whiskey. As for Richard Vance, I've already tipped off customs about his smuggling containers. They're making their move tonight. Our glasses clinked. In that moment, I was truly my father's daughter, no longer the foolish woman who cried within the confines of her marriage. As I was leaving the estate, Marco handed me a file. Miss Sophia, Kay found these internal documents from Hayes Construction. I skimmed through the confidential files, a smile playing on my lips. Ethan's embezzlement was far worse than I had thought. He hadn't just lost money gambling. He had forged board meeting minutes to secretly mortgage the company's core assets. Marco, change of plans. Take me to the Hayes Construction headquarters, I said suddenly. It's time to pay my dear husband a visit. In the top-floor boardroom of the Hayes Construction building, an emergency board meeting was underway. Through a secretary loyal to my father, I was getting a live feed of the meeting. The East River collapse is an accident. The media is exaggerating. I could hear Ethan's frantic voice through my earpiece. The most urgent thing now is to stabilize the stock price. Mr. Hayes, the problem isn't just the media, came an older man's voice. It was Mr. Chen, a veteran board member. The safety inspection report just came in. All the materials failed. The supplier is an affiliate of Vance Industries. How do you explain that? I had no knowledge of this. Ethan stammered. That was the procurement department's, and your cousin runs the procurement department, doesn't he? Mr. Chen said coldly. The board is demanding a full audit, including the whereabouts of that $3 million you spent. I heard the sound of a glass shattering, followed by Ethan's furious shout. I took out my earpiece and happily rode the elevator to the top floor. When I opened the boardroom door, every director turned to look at me. Ethan was standing at the head of the table, his face ashen, his tie crooked. He looked like a defeated rooster. I apologize for the interruption, I said with a smile, walking towards an empty seat. It was a seat my father had secured for me through his shell company's shares. As a major shareholder, I'd like to hear how you plan to handle the East River project. Ethan's eyes widened as if they would pop out of his head. How did you, Mrs. Hayes? You may not be aware, Mr. Chen said, standing to greet me. But our initial investigation suggests this was caused by faulty materials and the supplier is closely linked to Vance Industries. Oh, what a coincidence, I said, feigning surprise. My father just received a tip that customs is raiding a Vance Industries smuggling warehouse tonight. The boardroom descended into chaos. The directors whispered amongst themselves, some already pulling out their phones. Ethan's face was gray. He knew better than anyone about the dirty deals between his company and Vance Industries. Gentlemen, I raised my voice. I propose we form an independent investigation committee to thoroughly examine all transactions between our company and Vance Industries. Furthermore, given Mr. Hayes' recent instability, I move that his duties as COO be temporarily suspended. You crazy bitch. Ethan lunged at me but was restrained by security. Calm down, darling, I said softly. This is for your own good. Just imagine if those loan documents from the Atlantic City Casino and the paper's mortgaging company assets were to be made public. Ethan froze as if choked. He finally realized the cards I held were far more than just proof of his affair. The board passed my motions with an overwhelming majority. As I left the building, the sky was stained a blood red, like the impending fate of the city's power structure. My phone vibrated. It was a message from Julian. Short sales successful. Hayes Construction stock down 60%. Acquired 11% of outstanding shares. A moment later, a text from my father arrived. Customs raid successful. Richard Vance in custody for questioning. I let out a long breath and got into the waiting car. Marco handed me a cup of hot tea. Back to the safe house, Miss Sophia. No, that place. I trailed off as a black SUV in the rearview mirror caught my eye. It had been following us since we left the building. Marco, we have a tail. Marco's eyes sharpened. He pressed his earpiece. Team 2, 2 o'clock. Black Range Rover, license plate, New York. 8 Charles Thomas, 2134. Run it. Less than a minute later, the reply came. Plate is a fake, but we got a facial scan from inside the vehicle. It's the head of security for Hayes Construction. Ethan's men, I murmured, my eyes narrowing. When a dog is cornered, it bites. Lose them and take me to the safe house. Marco wrenched the wheel, and the car swerved into a narrow alley. The SUV followed close behind. The two cars engaged in a silent chase through the evening traffic of downtown Manhattan. Hold on, Miss Sophia, Marco said, pressing a red button on the console. A thick cloud of smoke erupted from the back of our car. While the pursuer's vision was obscured, Marco executed a series of sharp turns and drove into the underground parking garage of a shopping mall. We switched to a pre-positioned car and smoothly exited through the rear. I could see the SUV still circling the garage entrance. Ethan is starting to suspect you. Marco's voice was grim. Should I have the Don send men to take care of him? No, I sneered. Let him. It's time to show Ethan that I'm not an easy target. The safe house was a discreet penthouse my father kept in Tribeca. The first thing I did was open my laptop to check the latest news. The financial channels were all abuzz with the Hayes construction scandal. #Hayes cover-up was trending on social media. Even more interesting was a rumor spreading like wildfire that Richard Vance had been taken into custody. Whispers suggested he was smuggling not just luxury goods, but drugs and weapons. Vance Industries' website was down, and their stock was frozen. My phone rang. It was Ethan. I let it ring 10 times before answering. Sophia, this was you, wasn't it? His voice was broken. From the background noise, he was in a bar. I don't know what you're talking about, darling, I said, putting him on speakerphone as I continued to review documents. Don't play dumb. The board meeting, the stock price, the Vances. This is all you're doing. What the hell do you want? He screamed hysterically. I want to know what it feels like to lose everything. My voice was as light as a feather, just like you made me feel. There was a moment of silence, then the sound of shattering glass, followed by Ethan's roar. You just wait, you evil bitch. I'm going to make you suffer a fate worse than death. The line went dead. I shook my head and called Julian. Keep buying up Hayes construction stock and start a rumor that Richard Vance is going to sell all his shares to pay the fines for his smuggling case. Already on it, Julian said with a laugh. And we've discovered a secret Swiss bank account belonging to William Hayes. A regular amount has been deposited every month for the last 5 years. The recipient is Chloe Vance. This unexpected information made me raise an eyebrow. My father-in-law was sending Chloe money every month. Why? Check the memo line on those transfers, I said, and prepare for the next phase. We're going to send William Hayes a very big birthday present. Hanging up, I walked to the window. The night was inky black, but in the distance, the lights of the Hayes construction building still shone brightly. But by tomorrow's sunrise, the owner of that building might change. Ethan, did you think breaking my leg would be the end of it? No, I'm going to break the very backbone of your entire family. The night before William Hayes' 60th birthday party, I was in my dressing room trying on a champagne-colored gown that beautifully accentuated my waist. The scar on my right leg was now just a faint line. Marco knocked and entered, holding a velvet jewelry box. From the dawn, he said. He said it would go well with your dress tomorrow. Inside was a diamond necklace. At its center was a rare red diamond, glowing like a drop of blood. I recognized this gem. It was my mother's favorite. Where's my father? I touched the red diamond. It was cold as ice. He is waiting for you in the study. Mr. Croft is also there. I threw on a robe and walked barefoot to the study. When I opened the door, my father and Julian were discussing something over a set of architectural blueprints. Julian was in a crisp suit, his eyes sharp,